Have you ever wondered what happens when injustice strikes someone who sacrificed everything? When a perfect suburban street, with its white picket fences and manicured lawns, hides a judgment darker than any shadow. In that neighborhood, a woman crossed a line no one should ever cross. She screamed at a veteran in a wheelchair, branded him the nuisance of the block, treated his war scars as if they were mere dirt to be swept away. But she didn't know that the man, Jack Ramsey, was more than a soldier. He was a legend, a man who'd pulled dozens of comrades from the smoke and fire. 2 hours later, 500 Marines appeared, silently lining the street. No protests, no threats, only a presence so powerful it spoke louder than words. Why had they come? What did they leave behind? And what secret made the entire neighborhood hold its breath? Join us to uncover a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and the unyielding power of silence. A tale you won't be able to look away from. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join us for more thrilling, captivating stories. Early mornings in Maple Grove always carried the biting chill of dawn's mist. The row of houses stood side by side, painted pristine white, their red tile roofs aligned like masterful strokes on a canvas hung in a living room. Yet, at the very end of the street, sat a weathered house, standing out amid that manufactured perfection. Its moss-gray paint peeled in jagged patches. The wooden porch sagged as if it had weathered countless storms. A rough planked ramp sloped from the front door down to the road, where its owner's motorized wheelchair would trundle each morning. That was Jack Ramsey's home, a former Marine, his frame slight, his back bowed by a lifetime of burdened responsibility. At sunrise, while the maples along the road still slumbered, Jack's wheelchair motor would whir softly, like the unquiet sigh of battlefield memories that refused to rest. He'd roll slowly down the ramp, pausing by the old oak, a tree he'd tended with his own hands, nurturing it as the only kindred spirit left after years of war far from home. Above him, the American flag snapped brightly in the breeze, unfaded by sun or storm. He called it his silent declaration, a reminder to himself, and to anyone daring enough to forget, that freedom must be guarded every hour. Jack was no man of many words. The military had taught him that actions speak louder than speech. Each morning, he performed exactly 2 rituals, brewing coffee so dark you could still see its foam crest in the cup, then settling into the kitchen window seat. Sunlight slanted through the leaves, catching the tabletop's grain where his steaming mug sat. He'd sip slowly, let the bitterness coat his lips, then sit in silence as the world outside woke. The rumble of the school bus shattered the stillness. Neighbors' voices drifted by as they headed to work. Occasionally, a distant ambulance siren would roll over the neighborhood, pausing Jack's heart for a moment, reminding him of comrades lost in silent sacrifice. In that clamor, Jack embodied proud stillness, but in Maple Grove, his quiet drew curious stares that soon turned to wary glances. Shiny cars would edge past his dilapidated home as drivers peered down at it like a sore blemish on the block. The HOA began whispering about property values and neighborhood aesthetics. Letters arrived, urging Jack to repair his porch, repaint his siding, replace the ramp with HOA-approved steps. Each notice reopened old wounds. On the USS Freedom, Jack and his brothers had faced towering seas, bullets, sacrifice, and grief. Affectionate letters from superiors could never erase the faces of friends who fell amid the smoke and darkness. He'd kept every missive in an old, locked chest for decades. Now, HOA meeting invitations, hollow clauses on sterile stationery, weighed down his spirit. Had he returned only to be met with ruin and misunderstanding from people who never grasped the cost of freedom? But Jack refused to yield. One quiet weekend afternoon, he polished the flag, mending its frayed edge. He knelt and whispered the star-spangled banner under his breath, lyrics ingrained from his youth. The ramp creaked beneath his feeble steps, yet his eyes blazed with resolve. To him, that flag was no mere decoration, but an oath to the past and a vow to the future. The next morning, as luxury cars glided past once more, Jack rolled down the ramp and paused by the oak. He glanced at the neat row of houses, then at the flag dancing overhead, as if to tell the neighborhood, "Never forget who paid for your peace." No words were needed. His steady gaze conveyed pride and solemn warning to any who would look closely. Soon after, the HOA sent another letter. Remove the flagpole or lower it to the common visual standard, citing landscape preservation and uniformity rules. Jack read it, hands trembling but eyes unwavering. He booted up his computer, a rare gesture, and emailed the board photos of his battered ramp, the black and white portraits of his shipmates aboard the Freedom, and a brief note. This flag is heritage, memory of those who fell defending liberty. He closed with, "If the HOA truly values history and freedom, I invite you to hear my story." Having sent it, Jack didn't wait for a reply. He returned to his small porch, sat in the old armchair, set his now cold coffee on the armrest, and closed his eyes. The wind stirred the oak leaves, whispering, "You are not alone." He smiled softly, a smile out of place in Maple Grove, yet the smile of a man who had stood between life and death. The next day, a delegation from the HOA arrived. They tread carefully up the wooden ramp, their eyes curious, glancing at the aging wheelchair. Jack met them beneath the fluttering banner and wordlessly showed them each photograph, each yellowed letter. Their meeting was hushed, only the breeze, pages turning, and faces softening in understanding. Finally, one board member spoke. "We didn't know. We apologize for our haste." They made no further demands about the flag. Jack nodded once and returned to the kitchen, pouring himself another cup of black coffee. Outside, Maple Grove remained as pristine and proud as ever, yet now it held one more story, of a weathered house, of a Marine's unwavering vigil, and of a flag never lowered. A reminder that freedom and memory cannot be erased by manufactured perfection. In the stillness of dawn, Jack offered a rare smile, like sunlight piercing gray clouds to illuminate a quiet corner of the street. Early mornings in Maple Grove carried the damp hush of dew clinging to the leaves. The first rays of sunlight painted warm streaks across the sidewalk. In this ordinarily quiet neighborhood, Sarah Mitchell appeared like a bold stroke of authority. Her golden hair swept into a neat chignon. She wore a tailored office dress with a cream-colored blazer draped over her shoulders, the uniform she deemed befitting the head of the Homeowners Association. In one hand, she always clutched a thick dossier, its cover blazing red like a warning flame. Any deviation from the rules would be noted and punished. Sarah's footsteps rang in steady rhythm on the brick pavement, yet she seemed never to truly hear them. Her gaze swept each low fence, every lawn, each front yard of the adjacent homes, except for the one at the end of the street where Jack Ramsey lived. Jack, a former Marine, had tended that weathered house for years. The wooden ramp leading from the door to the road, the rugged map of his morning journey, drove Sarah mad. To her, Its roughness shattered the visual harmony that the HOA had agreed upon, and the proud American flag fluttering atop its tall pole in the yard, with its angled reach toward the sky, was offensive, excessive by the HOA's flagpole regulations. Every week, Sarah's first task was to draft a violation notice, stamp it with the HOA seal, and deliver it by hand to Jack. Repair the porch. Daily fine of $100. Lower the flagpole to a maximum height of 2 meters. But when those official papers reached Jack, he simply tore them apart, and the fragments littered his kitchen floor as if they had never existed. He neither argued nor complained. He merely resumed his morning routine. Power up the wheelchair motor, roll slowly down the ramp, pause beneath the old oak, brew a hot cup of black coffee, and watch the flag ripple in silence. That silence was Sarah's greatest challenge. She believed the HOA's power could not be ignored, that with sharp enough rules enforced consistently, anyone would eventually yield. But Jack, with eyes as calm as granite, stood firm. It was as though he inhabited a realm beyond those dry pieces of paper. To him, the flag was an oath to fallen comrades, a testament to an inescapable duty. The ramp was proof of his return journey, each crack and worn plank telling a story of struggle and survival. As time passed, Sarah felt her growing frustration swell. She began appearing at the top of the ramp earlier than usual, pretending to walk her dog, while really watching Jack's every move. Whenever he rolled by, she halted, her eyes tense, her pen scribbling furiously. Her posture stiff, her smile polite, yet her eyes betrayed a fierce eagerness to triumph over an opponent who had chosen silence as his ultimate weapon. Then, one overcast morning, when gray clouds blanketed the sky, Sarah decided on direct action. She strode onto the wooden ramp, her body swaying like an octopus drifting along the shore. But this time, she did not pass by the oak. She advanced straight toward the flagpole. A light breeze stirred, and the flag twitched defiantly. Sarah lifted her chin and pointed at it, her voice cold as a surgeon's blade. "This offends everyone," she intoned each word with precision. "This is a family neighborhood, not a barracks." There was no pretense of friendliness, only command and coercion. Jack regarded her with steady calm. He did not frown nor waver. In that moment, time seemed to pause. The trees stilled, the flower petals at window sills held their breath. Even the school bus rumbling by fell silent. In that frozen hush, Sarah felt a surge of fury, as if the very institution she championed had turned on her. She stepped closer, deliberately closing the distance so both flag and ramp lay within her sphere of control. "Are you deaf?" she sneered, her mocking laugh slicing between her insults. And then, in a flash of lost restraint, she kicked the right wheel of Jack's chair, barely a touch, but enough to send it wobbling. Before he could react, Jack toppled hard onto the cold concrete. The sickening thud echoed sharply. Crimson welled at his temple, bright against his weathered skin. Sarah froze. Her heart pounded wildly, her chest heaving with frantic breaths. She stumbled back, whispering, I didn't mean to." Her voice quivered with hollow fear, as though she blamed fate for her own actions. She glanced around, desperate to see if anyone had witnessed it. Her eyes darted for neighbors, for a security camera. But Maple Grove was deserted at dawn. The emptiness pressed down, and her pulse slowed as dread settled in. Without a word, she turned and walked away, leaving Jack motionless on the curb. Yet across the street, behind a drawn, coarse curtain, someone had watched it all. The fabric shuddered as the observer rose, clutching a phone with white-knuckled determination. Worry and resolve shone in their eyes. despite Maple Grove's manufactured perfection. Another story was stirring, a story of justice, of giving voice to the lone and forgotten, and of a flag that would never fade. In that moment, the curtain fell slowly, reminding us that no matter how deeply the truth is hidden, there is always one brave enough to expose it. Less than 5 minutes after Sarah left, Marcus's phone pinged with a new message. On the screen, a 9-second video shook and blurred. The moment Jack hit the concrete, bright red blood trickled from his temple, and Sarah's voice rang out like a lone justification in the silent air. He just fell. He shouldn't block the path. No caption, no commentary, only that image and sound, enough to reopen decades-old wounds. The clip spread immediately within a private chat called Delta 9, a band of former Marines whom Jack once led through harsh campaigns. Marcus, now managing shipments at a suburban cold storage warehouse, paused his work, his eyes fixed on the screen as if someone had touched a raw nerve. He forwarded the video to Elena, now a sports instructor at the community center, then clocked out on the spot. Elena passed it to Hawk, the nickname of the man running a motorcycle club for returning warriors. Hawk, sitting amid gleaming bikes in his old garage, didn't ask, "What happened?" or "Why did Sarah do it?" He skimmed the footage, then tapped a quick reply, Jack's house coordinates, followed by 4 emphatic words, "Cap needs us." Anyone who ever served under Jack knew Cap was their affectionate shorthand for Captain Ramsey, the silent, steadfast leader. They remembered how he risked his life on every patrol, how he gave up his seat on the rescue chopper for a younger Marine, even when he was utterly spent. No explanation was necessary. They simply mobilized. Within an hour of the video's appearance, hundreds of messages filled the chat. Not a word beyond coordinates and that call to arms. A map dotted with red pins flickered on Marcus's screen. He blew on the excess frozen gauze on his finger, prepared to drive. Elena bolted the center's doors, shoved her running shoes into her backpack, and raced to her car. Hawk strapped on his recon helmet, cinched the chin strap, and rolled out his steel beasts onto the street. By midday, the first truck arrived at the end of Jack's street, where the oak tree's shade fell across the road. Its scratched but sturdy frame opened at the rear to reveal a group of hard-bitten men in simple tactical gear, dark t-shirts, cargo pants, time-worn combat boots. The first to emerge was a tall man in a recon cap and smoky sunglasses. His boots, caked in dust yet polished to a dull shine, hinted at careful upkeep despite harsh conditions. He didn't glance toward Sarah's house. His gaze went straight to the weathered home at the street's end, where the American flag still snapped in the breeze. He gave a slight nod as if greeting an old comrade, then strode up the wooden ramp to the porch. Within 10 minutes, the second and third trucks rolled in, each disgorging Marines who had once fought alongside Jack, now returning to shield him from contempt and violence. They drew the window shades, shouldered their packs, and moved in low formation, eyes scanning the neighborhood, ensuring no further incident would occur. Inside her house, Sarah, seated at the breakfast table, suddenly froze as a shadow flickered along the treetops. She pressed her lips together, jumped to her feet, and rushed to the window, looking every bit the startled queen receiving ill tidings. Too many figures clustered beneath the old oak. They formed an arc, as though saluting Jack, their faces unreadable, but resolute. Sarah swept aside the drape, attempting to project control. She smoothed her blazer, inhaled deeply, and hurried outside. But as she approached the ramp, the air hung oppressively silent. No sirens from security cameras, no traffic noise, no neighborly whispers, only the veterans, watching in quiet solidarity. She forced a smile as she climbed the ramp. but it curved unnaturally across her face. Her eyes swept the sun-tanned visages and sinewy arms. There was Marcus, ash-blonde crew-cut and steely eyes still burning with purpose. Elena, her kindly features shadowed by sorrow under her center's blue polo. Hawk, broad-shouldered with a brutal scar tracing his right forearm, and many more, each carrying the proud legacy of battles past. Clearing her throat, Sarah began, "Gentlemen, I can explain," but her voice faltered. The group regarded her in silence. No cheers, no jeers, only a steadfast light in their eyes that left her flustered. She realized she faced an invisible wall, one no HOA rule or social clout could breach. Without a word, one veteran stepped forward and bowed respectfully. He extended his hand, not for a handshake, but to hold out a small metal badge, the simple Marine Corps emblem, eagle wings spread over a star-encircled globe. It carried a clear message. "We're here for Cap." Sarah's fingers trembled as she took the badge, unwilling to grasp it fully. She looked into each face, and at last understood that true power lies not in a tailored blazer or ink-stamped bylaws, but in loyalty, in brotherhood forged by blood and sweat on unforgiving soil. The neighborhood's atmosphere shifted. No scolding, no refusals, only solemn silence, like a ceremony acknowledging an undeniable truth. When Sarah returned to her pristine home, the badge heavy in her palm, she knew she had misjudged Jack. He was not merely a stubborn veteran railing against hollow rules. He was the living keeper of history, the promise that freedom demanded guardianship. That afternoon, Jack's wheelchair motor whirred into life as his comrades helped him outside. The American flag atop its tall pole soared against the violet sunset. From a distance, Sarah watched, her gaze a tangle of respect and remorse. Maple Grove, in its flawless facade, had gained a real story. One of unwavering spirit and comradeship, a tale no regulation could erase. And at the end of the street, beneath the flying flag, Jack Ramsey remained its guiding hand, leading everyone through peace's greatest trials, and proving that solidarity endures, even against the quietest oppression. High noon on Maple Grove bore an unexpected taste of battle. The sky, once a flawless blue, now framed an improvised military base. Large trucks sat in convoy under the old oak before Jack's home. Dusty motorcycles, their shocks worn by countless miles, lined the street. Along the wooden ramp to his porch, men in uniform, Jack's former comrades, stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a silent but formidable wall. No flags flew, no banners proclaimed their purpose, only thick, waiting stillness. On the porch beyond the fence, Sarah Mitchell stood frozen. Her red dossier clutched so tight her hands trembled. She tried to reach the HOA board, hoping for an emergency order to restore order. Her phone rang a third time before the HOA president's cold voice came through. "Sarah, stand down." The curt command cut through her need for control like an iceberg. Deflated, she dialed 911, but the dispatcher replied, "No incidents reported." Even the city's information network seemed humbled by these veterans' unity. The security camera by her window blinked each time it sensed movement. She peered through the curtain and saw a man gently place a folded flag on Jack's porch, the very flag Jack had tended for years, still fluttering defiantly. A few steps later, another veteran knelt to wipe dried blood from a floorboard with the edge of his jacket. Her heart pounded. She reached for the door to lecture them on common property rules, on porch maintenance responsibilities. But as her hand touched the latch, a scarred veteran turned and met her gaze. No words, only the weight of loyalty and authority in his eyes. Sarah realized she was the outsider here, alone before an army sworn to protect its own. She quietly withdrew and slammed the door shut, feeling smaller than ever. Inside the quiet bedroom, Jack Ramsey was startled by the roar of engines outside his window. He rose stiffly, drew back the sheer curtain, and took in the strange spectacle. A line of veterans at attention, flanked by dusty trucks and bikes. Maple Grove, his lonely domain hours before, had become a shrine to memory where past and present converged. His chest tightened, his heart stilled in that poignant moment. Brothers who'd shared mortar fire and midnight patrols now stood ready to shield him from any threat, even the HOA's hollow notices. When the last Jeep rumbled into place, Jack told himself there was no need to hurry. He braced himself against the window frame, drew a deep breath in preparation for this special moment, then pushed open the door and slowly rolled down the ramp. Each smooth turn of his wheels on the planks sounded like a greeting to his comrades. A soft round of applause rose, signaling the ceremony's start. 50 veterans sat upright, eyes fixed on him. They held stiff silence, senior salute without words. A young Marine, face gleaming in the noon sun, stepped forward first. Sweat-soaked t-shirt clinging to his broad chest, dusty boots laced tight, steel helmet in hand. He dipped his head low, tipped the helmet at his brow, then snapped it back in place. The silent, solemn sailor's salute. Jack offered a gentle nod in return, quiet, respectful, as though saying, "I have returned." That simple gesture, without fanfare, affirmed a brotherhood that endures beyond any rule. In that instant, Maple Grove seemed to hold its breath. Car horns, barking dogs, everyday clamor faded into irrelevance. Only ceremonious silence remained, the silence of gratitude, of camaraderie, of shared sacrifice. Sarah, cowering behind her half-closed door, watched in stunned stillness. Her dossier dropped to the tiled floor with a hollow thud, empty and meaningless. When Jack completed his salute, he swept his gaze across familiar faces. Marcus, weary after a long shift. Elena, pensive beyond the community center gates. Hawk, bearing his battle scars with quiet pride, and many more, each having set aside daily life just to be here for him. Jack turned to the flagpole, where the American flag rippled gallantly against the purple dusk. Every crack in the ramp's planks, each patch of peeling paint on the old siding, testified to courage and fellowship. He closed his eyes and smiled warmly, the smile of a man reunited with a second family after years adrift. No speech was needed. The scene itself spoke volumes. Freedom and brotherhood cannot be undone by soulless regulations. The veterans quietly dispersed, making way for Jack's return to the porch. They supported him, arm in arm, guiding him back to his place of honor. Sarah finally stepped onto the ramp, and, head bowed in genuine respect, she honored that unbreakable symbol. The street's tension melted like morning mist under the sun. Trucks and bikes stood silent, ready to slip away as quietly as they had arrived. Maple Grove returned to peace, yet it was no longer just another suburban street. It bore the imprint of history, the footprints of those who dared to stand and defend freedom. Beneath that fluttering flag, Jack Ramsey, the former Marine, remained its leader, its emblem of courage and camaraderie. At the street's end, his story would be retold for generations, a testament to the power of silence and the spirit that never yields. That afternoon, the fierce summer sun softened, gilding the ancient oak leaves before Jack Ramsey's house. A gentle coolness let beads of sweat roll down the foreheads of the Marines, yet not one complained. They formed into teams, each with its own task. The thump of pneumatic hammers, the drone of drills, and low murmurs blended into an industrious symphony. First, the engineering squad dismantled the weathered wooden ramp from door to street, the very ramp Jack had used every morning. The rough, rot-worn planks were neatly stacked aside, making way for a reinforced steel frame. Gleaming steel posts were welded firmly and anchored into the foundation, the sturdy supports now capable of bearing the weight of Jack's motorized wheelchair. In the sunset glow, the silver beams caught the light, signaling a new chapter for the house that once seemed humbled among its neighbors. Meanwhile, another team repainted the porch, where peeling white paint had yellowed with age. Using an automatic sprayer, they applied an olive-drab waterproof coating to the concrete surface, honoring military decorum while harmonizing with the oak canopy above. The soldier craftsman carefully masked the railings, wielding each spray stroke to prevent overspray onto adjacent lawns. The new hue gave Jack's home a dignified presence, starkly distinct from the uniform red and white of the neighboring dwellings. The iron flagpole in the corner, once condemned by the HOA as too tall, too gaudy, was removed and re-erected in a reinforced footing. This time, they engraved the unit designation into its shaft, USMC 0821, the traditional code of the United States Marine Corps. Under amber-toned work lights, each character glinted, reminding passers-by of Jack's service origins and his undying sense of duty. The American flag was then hoisted, unfurling proudly in the gentle breeze, its fold reaching skyward over Maple Grove's quiet streets. No detail was spared. A small team carved hand-sized wooden plaques, each bearing the name of a comrade who once fought alongside Jack, from Sergeant Marcus Tate to Captain Elena Carter, from Hawk, the motorcycle club leader, to lesser-known faces who had shared the smoke and sacrifice. Deep, bold letters painted gold stood out against the ebony wood, forming a living memory garden along the front fence. Finally, they laid a V-shaped brick pathway leading from the porch to the road, its form symbolizing both victory and veteran. Each standard-size brick was inscribed with an initial or year of service, representing every individual's contribution. As dusk fell, the path curved like an arrow pointing forward, declaring, "Never forget, never abandon." From her living room window, Sarah Mitchell watched intently, recording on her phone. She waited for a misstep, a confrontation, any overreach she could capture for the HOA and authorities. Despite the pleasant evening air, her tension made her dare not even inhale deeply. Yet the only thing witnessed was order and solemnity. Drills paused, then resumed, welding sparks dancing like a soldier's outstretched hand, meticulous care evident in every motion. At last, exasperated, Sarah rose and shouted, "You need a permit. Do you even know the rules here?" Her voice cut through the scene like a siren, but the Marines kept their focus. Not a man looked up. They merely exchanged slight nods and continued, proof that they were acting correctly, honoring their comrade's home regardless of bureaucratic paperwork. She turned, hoping for Jack's intervention. "Say something! This is your mess!" But Jack appeared just inside the doorframe, back straight and shoulders calm. His gaze never faltered, never flinched. His silence, echoing amid the construction sounds, was a blade slicing through every doubt and objection, imbued with authority, clarifying each action without uttering a word. Soon afterward, a new sound emerged. The synchronized engines of 6 armored Humvees rolling into the street. Their steel wheels hummed powerfully yet quietly on asphalt. Behind them, a rank of high-powered motorcycles. their low beams angled forward like a brass band leading the main formation. The column entered Jack's home zone, presenting a tactical gray phantom amid Maple Grove's peaceful backdrop. The lead vehicle stopped directly in front of the porch. Its door opened, and an elderly officer with salt and pepper hair and a chest full of shining ribbons stepped out. His posture erect, his dress uniform solemn, each medal telling a story of valor. He bowed respectfully to Jack. No flourish, just a slow, reverent nod. Jack returned the salute with a gentle nod of his own, simple, heartfelt, conveying profound gratitude without a single spoken syllable. Immediately after, a young Marine stepped forward carrying a sealed steel box to rest at Jack's feet. The square container, secured by a metal clasp, bore a raised red USMC star on its lid. Jack bent carefully, undid the lock, and peeled back each seal. The air on the porch stilled as he slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay a neatly folded flag tucked against the side, and beside it, a black and white photograph. Jack in his youth, grinning between two comrades, the sandy terrain and a machine gun emplacement behind them. Finally, he lifted a white envelope, its corner stamped with a signature. To Captain Ramsey. Jack unfolded the letter and read in silence. The cursive slant, the deep blue ink, the simple yet heartfelt words. Cap, we have not forgotten your leadership, protection, and sacrifice. This flag, this photo, and these bricks are proof of our eternal brotherhood. When you need us, we will always stand by you. He paused, his eyes bright as he looked across the glass toward Sarah's house. There was no anger, no resentment, only clarity. No set of typed regulations could match the brotherhood etched into a Marine's heart. Sarah, crouched behind the window, realized she had chosen the wrong side. Her HOA dossier slipped from her grip, scattering its meaningless pages. When Jack closed the box and carefully replaced each memento, he turned to her with a look both clear and forgiving, ready to pardon her misstep. The last rays of the afternoon sun pierced the oak leaves, illuminating the flag's flutter with a soft halo. Maple Grove, once serene and uniform, now carried the strength of courage and camaraderie. And at the center of it all, Jack Ramsey, the steadfast Marine, remained its irreplaceable emblem, guiding the wayward hearts back to the common harbor. As dusk fell, the harsh summer sun softened. The last rays filtered through the ancient oaks before Jack Ramsey's home. The cool air let beads of sweat roll down the Marine's brows, yet not one complained. They gathered in teams, each with its own task. The thrum of jackhammers, the whir of drills, and the low murmur of voices blended into an industrious anthem. First, the engineering squad removed the old wooden ramp that Jack had used every morning. The weathered, splintered planks, hollowed by years of sun and rain, were stacked neatly aside. In their place rose a reinforced steel framework, polished steel posts welded firmly into the foundation, capable of bearing his motorized wheelchair. In the golden twilight, the beams glinted like silver heralds of a new era for this once overlooked house. Simultaneously, another group repainted the porch, its peeling white coat long yellowed by time. Using an automated sprayer, they applied a solemn olive-drab waterproof finish to the concrete, preserving a military bearing while harmonizing with the oak canopy. The soldier craftsman masked every railing, directing each spray stroke with precision to keep the neighboring lawns pristine. The new hue endowed Jack's home with quiet dignity, a stark contrast to the uniform red and white of the street. The iron flagpole, once condemned for being too tall, too flashy, was dismantled and re-erected in a sturdier footing. This time, they engraved its shaft with the unit's code, USMC 0821. Under the amber work lights, the characters shimmered, a constant reminder of Jack's Marine heritage and his unyielding duty. The American flag was then hoisted, unfurling proudly against Maple Grove's tranquil sky. No detail was overlooked. A small team hand-carved dozens of wooden plaques, each the size of a palm, and mounted them along the front fence. Every plaque bore the name of a comrade who had fought alongside Jack. From Sergeant Marcus Tate to Captain Elena Carter, from Hawk, the motorcycle club leader, to lesser-known faces who shared the fire and sacrifice. The deep, bold letters painted gold on ebony wood formed a living memory garden. Finally, they laid a V-shaped brick pathway leading from the porch to the street, its form symbolizing both victory and veteran. Each standard brick bore an initial or year of service, honoring each Marine's contribution. As twilight deepened, the path curved like an arrow pointing forward, declaring, "Never forget, never abandon." Inside her living room, Sarah Mitchell watched through the window. Recording every moment on her phone, she awaited a misstep, a confrontation, any excuse to summon the HOA or the police. Despite the pleasant evening air, she held her breath in tension. Yet the scene remained one of solemn order. Drills paused and resumed. Welding sparks flickered like a soldier's open palm, meticulous care evident in each motion. At last, exasperated, Sarah rose and shouted, "You need a permit! Do you even know the rules here?" Her voice pierced the quiet like a siren. Yet the Marines did not flinch. They exchanged slight nods and continued their work. Proof that they acted rightly, honoring their comrade's home above any bureaucratic paperwork. She turned, hoping for Jack's intervention. "Say something, this is your mess!" But Jack appeared in the doorway, back straight, shoulders calm. His gaze never wavered. His silence, echoing amid the hum of construction, cut through every doubt and objection like a blade. His quiet authority lent absolute clarity to every task underway. Soon after, a new sound arrived. The synchronized engines of 6 Humvees rolling down the street. Their steel wheels hummed powerfully yet quietly on asphalt. Behind them, a line of motorcycles, headlights angled forward like a brass fanfare. The convoy entered Jack's domain, tactical gray silhouettes against Maple Grove's peaceful backdrop. The lead vehicle stopped before the porch. Its door opened, and an elderly officer, with salt and pepper hair and a chest full of gleaming ribbons, stepped out, his posture erect, his dress uniform solemn, each medal a testament to valor. He bowed respectfully to Jack. No flourish, just a measured nod of reverence. Jack returned a gentle nod, simple, heartfelt, conveying profound gratitude without a word. Immediately, a young Marine placed a sealed steel box at Jack's feet. The square container, clasped shut, bore a raised red star of the USMC on its lid. Jack bent carefully, undid the clasp, and peeled back each seal. The air fell still as he lifted the lid. Inside lay a neatly folded flag pressed against the side, and beside it a black and white photograph. Jack as a young Marine, grinning between 2 comrades, a sandy battlefield and a machine gun emplacement behind them. Finally, he lifted a white envelope stamped, "To Captain Ramsey." Jack unfolded the letter and read in silence, the cursive slant, the deep blue ink, simple yet heartfelt words. "Cap, we have not forgotten your leadership, protection, and sacrifice. This flag, this photo, and these bricks are proof of our eternal brotherhood." When you need us, we will always stand by you." He paused. His eyes shone as they swept toward Sarah's house. There was no anger, no resentment, only clarity. No set of printed regulations could match the brotherhood seared into a Marine's heart. Sarah, pressed against the window frame, saw the truth. Her HOA dossier slipped from her fingers, scattering blank forms and meaningless fines. Jack closed the box and replaced each keepsake with care. Then he turned and met her gaze, his look both clear and forgiving, ready to absolve her misguided zeal. The last light of sunset pierced the oaks, illuminating the flag in a soft halo. Maple Grove, once uniform and pristine, now bore the strength of courage and camaraderie, and at its center, Jack Ramsey, the steadfast Marine, remained its irreplaceable emblem, guiding lost hearts back to a shared harbor. Please leave your thoughts and share this story with friends and family across the United States.